All right, Shalom, Shalom, Barakadia, Bashmel, Shalom, Bashem, Kodash. Double honors to the apostles, Elder Bishop, Shalom to you, Akim, pushing the work in truth and sincerity. All right, coming back at you with another one. Ain't really got a title for this one, but what I did earlier um, was type in chat GPT, Western Christianity Impact Analyst. All right, and of course, the reason being is, as of late, these Edomites, they want to pose themselves as God's gift to earth. They want to parade themselves as upright and moral. And for the most part, we know it's hypocrisy on a level that we've never seen. I mean, but what do you expect from the devil? What do you expect from the Esau? But we're seeing it live and in color. Which makes this thing, it just it's just like, wow. You can destroy the world, and try to suppress history and pull the wool over everybody's eyes and say that through your own inflated ideal of yourself, them practically lying to themselves and believing every lie that they have told. Oh, Salakia. All right. And I'm thinking about that guy, Matt Walsh, which the elder had touched on, you know, the previous videos I've done previously of him, just spouting out madness. But you get to see Esau, man, in full swing, you know. But I just wanted to point out, man, that the blatant hypocrisy, and the Lord is definitely going to try their worst because they're posing themselves as these, the greatest thing society has ever had. This lie that they have, taken people out of the Stone Age and brought in this industrial age. It's just a farce, your slaves built this kingdom of yours, all right, and you've just taken credit for it, okay, and you continually to down talk and to demean, all right, and make people feel like shit, and that's just Esau, man. She tries to make people feel like nothing, you know the pride of these devils, man. So I'm not gonna be long. Just had a few precepts, and I did want to read this, which this is information we know, you know. But the Lord is going to try their works, and so we're going to see if what you've been saying and what you've been doing has been uphold. You've been upholding the truth, so to speak, Salakia. Have you been upholding the Bible standards? And we know this just like the elder said, it's just what Christian culturalism or something like that. The elder Yeshua went into that, I believe, today in a lesson he did earlier. Okay, it looks good on the outside, but on the inside, it's decrepit. It's the most heinous thing that the world has ever seen. It's the most hypocritical thing ever seen in these Edomites. All right, and going, doubling down on this whole Christianity, falsehood, okay, which the elder was going into. This They worship power, okay, and the Lord gave them that power, and they should have ruled this if they had a brain, all right. If they really were about truth, they would have, which we know it's impossible, but they would have reigned and ruled their kingdom differently. Now their subjects is coming against them and pointing out their errors and all sorts of things, man. So, Salaki, without further ado, all right, let's start here, okay? Truthfully and reality based, what has Western Christianity, I spelled it wrong, done to the Western world, natives, blacks, and Hispanics? Okay, that's a big question, but I'll give you a truthful and reality-based breakdown of how Western Christianity, especially in its institutional European colonial form, has impacted natives. We cannot forget that is the form of Christianity that these Edomites they still worship. It is not even well, it is worship to a degree. It's worship of power. It's moving with indiscriminate form of pompous and pride and nationalism. That we've never seen. Okay, so it says blacks and Hispanics in the Western world. I'll split it into each group while noting overlap. All right, Native peoples, Americas, conquest and colonization, European settlers, Spanish, Portuguese, French, English, all European Edomites justified taking land through Christian doctrines like the doctrine of discovery. All right, papal bulls from the 1400s and the concept of manifest destiny, which it was manifest destiny because the Israelites had broken the covenant, okay, and they were continually doing evil, and the Lord sent our enemies on against us to punish us, and we understand that, but where the transgression comes in is when our iniquity had an end. All right, I believe it says that our iniquity had an end. They didn't cease to spoil. All right, okay, they kept killing, they kept murdering. All right, let's see here if I can find it really quick. All right. Let's see here. Oh, it's Ezekiel 35:5. I went to this yesterday. All right. And that's what really Christianity is truly their version of Christianity. The West is pure hatred. Is pure hatred. They don't, give off that, any type of merit of, principles of the Lord. All right, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ, but his true name is Yahweh Shai. Okay. Okay, so what you've done is all you've done is really showing your hatred on a level that we've never seen, and discrimination and racism, which to degrees racism being a bad thing is just you being for your people, as we always mention, Ezekiel 35:5, because thou hast had a perpetual hatred and hast shed the blood of the children of Israel by the force of the sword, in the time of their calamity, in the time that their iniquity had an end. All right. So yes, the Lord punished us. He sent our enemies against us, but eventually that punishment was lifted. Okay. All right. Because the Lord is merciful. All right. So the Lord would punish us for a duration of time, but our enemies, knowing who we are, and they did know who we were. Okay. They would punish us even more. The scriptures talk about them forwarding the affliction. All right. So they made things worse. Not to mention, when you look at what these Christians done over time, they stole land, right? They killed the innocent, all right? And during the time of slavery, they beaten slaves. They've done all type of heinous things, which they're trying to clean up that history so they can repaint this picture of this bogus image of what a Christian in the West is supposed to look like. These Edomites, your reputation is completely tarnished, and there's nothing you can do to salvage that image, that stigma, and that's because it is a shameful spewing upon your glory. And your reaction to that, the Lord's reproach, that's all it is. The Lord's reproach on your ass, and you can't shake it. Just like we couldn't shake what we've done and the shame and humiliation, the scriptures refer to it. All right, is what is it? It's like a shame. I forget the term, but the meaning of it means to be shamefaced or to be shamed. All right, but let's continue. All right, because it's quite a few things. It says forced conversions. All right, and cultural erasure. Right, natives were often forced to accept Christianity while their spiritual systems were outlawed. Traditional practices were labeled pagan and devil worship. You see, which some of it was going off, all right, but some of it wasn't, because the natives kept certain within their culture. It went back to the scriptures, okay, and the scriptures say you're not supposed to move your neighbor's landmark, all right, but what did Esau do? Okay, this man had done, he was gone over and beyond, all right. All right, so this is Micah, all right, chapter 2, all right, and 1. It says, woe to them that devise iniquity. All right, that means you think upon it. It's an ideal that you put into play. It says, and work evil upon their beds. When the morning is light, they practice it. So you devise wickedness in your head. You devise wicked things to do against others, and then you practice it when you have the opportune time. All right. It says, because it is in the power of their hand. And they covet fields. All right. They covet fields and take them by violence, and houses. Right. And so that you got these so-called white people decorating themselves, these fools like Matt Walsh and these other idiots who are decorating themselves like they're the best thing since sliced bread within the last few centuries. You didn't make the world a better place. You look at the world now, and the elder was going over it. The elder Yeshua was going into it. You practically destroyed the earth. You manufactured or industrialized the apocalypse, man. You didn't do anything. That it's supposed to turn the point. Turn us into some this greatness. For peace sake, the earth is waning. It's the oceanic life is destroyed. All right, the natural forces are depleted. All right, people are complaining. There's uproars of the people. There's under your rulership, under your rulership, man. The list goes on, man. Let's continue. It says in houses and take them away, so they oppress a man and his house, even a man and his heritage. And that's what y'all done. Okay? You justify doing it by saying that they were savages. Right here, devil worship, forcing your version of Jesus upon everybody, and your version of Jesus is you ever heard of the term the tender mercies of the devil? Right? It's man, it's crazy. It says boarding schools and assimilation, right? And the scriptures talk about you're not supposed to force philosophy on people, man. And that's what Habakkuk 2:16. So you're in violation of the scriptures. The way you establish this society is in complete violation of the scriptures, man. And that's why when your works are being tried, meaning the Lord searching out your counsels and searching out the things that you've done throughout the history, you're going to be found guilty because you took the Bible in your hand, right? And you can't, as the scripture says, you cast his words behind you. All right. Habakkuk 2:15. Woe unto him that giveth his neighbor drink, that putteth thy bottle to him, and making them drunken. Right. And you thought you were civilizing. You weren't civilizing anyone. You were making them twice the degenerate that you were. Selfish. All right. All right. And people have to navigate through this way of life, which is complete trash. You know, working 80-hour weeks. Um, you know, having to be away from your family. Like it's just so toxic to your way of life has always been toxic towards humanity, all right, and in the nature, okay, because you were estranged from the womb, right? That puttest thy bottle to him and makest him drunken also, that thou mayest look on their nakedness, right? And so you've essentially force fed of your way, all right, because here you force conversion and cultural erasure, all right, and boarding schools and assimilation, okay, you force that your ways upon us, and now you seeing that you know that that way doesn't work for us, okay. But let me finish. It says in the US and Canada, and I remember because I did a lesson on this a long time ago about boarding schools, all right, and it was this native, there was Gadites who kept certain biblical laws, even though they weren't, worshiping the Heavenly Father, but it was embedded in their culture. And it was like a natural thing for them to keep the Sabbath, men to have more than one wife, even though the women were jealous, but still, they kept certain customs that were very, very similar to the law, statutes, and commandments. All right. And Esau, kind of forced that away from them. All right. It says Christian missions ran schools that stripped Native children of language, culture, and identity. Abuse and death rates were high. Land and labor exploitation. The scriptures talk about you're not supposed to move your neighbor's landmark. And this is how you establish America. So stop with the, you know, grandioso of you being this great, clean, proprietor of all things good. Get the fuck out of here, man. You fucking Christianity has destroyed the world, and it continues to destroy the world. If this was such a Judeo-Christian country, why the fuck do you have pedophiles and pedophile rings, and Trump's supposed to be this, he's supposed to be secretly, he's supposed to have Christian values, but y'all go soft on the Epstein files. You completely disregard it like it never fucking happened. It's insane, right? It says mission systems, especially in Spanish territories, use forced native labor under the guise of civilizing them. It's just another bullshit so you can have your way. You exploit it over 4 or 5 centuries, man. All right, since the late 1400s, excuse me. All right, impact, loss of land, genocide, broken cultures, and displacement. Where 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 are the Christian values in that? I mean, these don't match the Bible principles. All right, it don't. It just don't. But also, survival has many native groups. All right, preserve traditions underground and blended them with Christianity. So give me a second, really. All right. So black people, enslaved Africans and descendants. Justification of slavery. European and American Christians often use the Bible to rationalize slavery. Example given twisting the curse of Ham narrative, which we're not Hamites, we're Shemitic. Okay, even the scholars know that, you know. And curse be Ham, that curse fell on Canaan. Okay, I believe. All right, let's see here. I didn't say curse be Ham. This is curse be Canaan. All right, I believe. Oh no, not Canaan. let me see. Genesis 9:25, and it reads, it says, and he said, cursed be Canaan. All right, a servant of servants shall he be unto his brethren. Right, and the fulfillment of that was when the Israelites went into the land after they, left out of Egypt. Okay, and some time after, if they took down the lands, all right, the descendants of Ham, which was, the Hamites, Canaan being one of his descendants, okay, the Canaanites, all right, they had to serve the Israelites, okay, and it was a very particular story, all right, so that was pretty much already fulfilled, okay, all right, but they try to use it for Jake, having to serve them, which was a complete lie, all right. Dehumanization, and the scriptures speak about against all of that, because the way you treated the slaves, right? It's okay to have slaves, but it's a certain way you're supposed to treat them, right? And you complete demeaning, complete and utter disregard for human life. We weren't even, you justified treating us like animals, right? And this is that history that you don't want the world to know about, because you want to keep this Christian image, this upright, all white Christian image. No, your history is tarnished. It's stained. Your carbon footprint, right? It's stained. It'll always be stained, and there's nothing you can do about it, right? Dehumanization. Christianity was a tool to strip Africans of it, which is Israelites. Okay, we were Israelites who fled into the west coast of Africa, and throughout the whole world for that matter. All right. Okay, due to 70 AD and the Romans' occupation and complete takeover of the land of Israel. All right, it says, Israelites of their religions, languages, and cultures, slave masters used it to enforce obedience. And you're not supposed to oppress a man in his heritage. The scriptures, it tells you that. But what? We're going to get to that Psalms 50. What hast thou done to declare my statutes? The Lord is about to try your works, and that's what's been happening. We've been set up to be a witness against you and all that you've done, right? And we've been charming never so wisely, all right? And you are like the deaf adder that stoppeth the ear, as the scriptures say. You don't want to hear, okay? But the Lord has made it clear to you, right? Racial hierarchy. You created the classism among, or I should say, racism, okay? Racial hierarchy. The church often reinforced white supremacy by teaching blacks were inferior. And what do you think your talking points are now? It's still the same. You teach black inferior. All right. One of the first movies that was ever made was a very accusative, The Birth of a Nation, right? It completely and utterly demonized us. All right. When we were so-called freed, all right, but we weren't freed. We were emancipated, meaning we went from one owner to another owner, all right, which was pretty much the state, okay, or the corporate entities, all right. So it says the church often reinforced white supremacy by teaching blacks were inferior both spiritually and socially, and you still do it to this day, because you've done it on a level where you covertly done it. You've done it through entertainment. All right. Well, they got this thing called black exploitation. Okay. You did it through policy. You did it through all sorts of things, man. All right. And you think that it is not going to have a play in you being judged. You think you're going to escape judgment. It's not going to happen. It's a psychological control. Slaves were sometimes only taught scriptures about obedience and submission, while passages about liberation were hidden. You see? And anything that gave us hope, you spoke against. All right, let's move on, okay? Resistance, all right, and reinterpretation. Despite oppression, Enslaved Israelites reinterpreted Christianity to identify with Israel and bondage, right? And so scriptures talk about Romans 8:16, man. The Spirit bear witness with our spirit that we're the children of the Most High. Okay? So even though these fucking devils, these white people, tried to make us feel like shit and tried to only use scriptures to, have us obedient to them, we've eventually at a point we figured out who we were. We were the people of the book that was being oppressed. Okay, it says identify with Christian, but we still had a version of Christianity that was plantation Christianity, as we call it, subservient, pacifist. All right. It says this became the root of black church traditions, all right, spirituals and movements for freedom. All right. Impact Christianity was both a weapon of oppression and paradoxically, all right, a source of strength and hope for liberation. All right. Hispanic Latino peoples, colonization and Catholicism, right? Which man, that's a fucking floodgate of information and history that we don't often go into, but it's just as bad as slavery. It's just as bad as what happened to the Native Americans. Okay. All right. Spanish and Portuguese colonization spread Christianity aggressively. Indigenous cultures in Mexico, Central, and South America were suppressed under Catholic missions. All right. It says syncretism, if I'm saying that right, native spiritual practices mixed with Catholicism. Example given, Dia de los Muertos, all right, Our Lady of Guadalupe, right, the worship of a woman, man, as survival strategies. Caste system, colonial Christians orders helped uphold racial hierarchies, right? Spaniards at the top, mixed and indigenous below, Africans at the bottom, right? So, and you base society on the color of your skin. The lighter, the brighter your skin was, the more you are on the hierarchy. And if you were brown, dark brown, or or brown or dark brown, a darker shade of hue, you was at the bottom of society, man. They got terms called mulatto, right? And you've divided people based on colors, man, to divide and conquer, so you can maintain control. That ain't no fucking Christian values, man. This is hypocrisy on a level that we never seen it again. Impact Christianity became deeply woven into Hispanic culture, right? And they still got them worshiping the Virgin Mary to this day, man. Absolutely bugged out. It says, but in ways that often reflect colonial domination rather than, all right, original indigenous spirituality. Big picture, across all three groups, colonial Christianity controlled Western Christianity often worked as the religious arm of empire, justifying conquest, slavery, and cultural erasure, right? Erasing culture. And what are you still doing to this day? You're still doing the same thing. You still live by the colonial tenets, right? So it ain't Christianity. Christianity is freaking, it's pseudo. And at this point, it's just bogus. All right, because the real quote unquote Christians, all right, are Israelites and always have been Israelites. Those who followed the Hamashiach, all right, which Hamashiach meaning the anointed, okay, and to anoint someone is to choose somebody, okay. So it says laws and trauma, which these these Edomites, these so-called white people, they absolutely take no responsibility. And the scriptures say that you wouldn't take no responsibility. The scriptures say you speak wickedly concerning oppression. Okay. All right. And it says you speak loftily. So lofty, you speak from this high position, this position of power, and you speak down on everybody else because of your status. That ain't what the Lord had taught. You motherfucking Edomites, boy, y'all are something, man. All right, survival and adaptation. All right, so no, loss and trauma, language death, cultural destruction, and intergenerational trauma are still felt till this day, 400 years, 250, 350 years later, right? And Esau, the so-called white man, takes absolutely no responsibility, but you're going to restore all, okay? And that's a promise. It says survival and adaptation. Despite this, Native, Black, and Hispanic peoples reshaped Christianity in their own ways, right? Which was still a false way, okay? And it's only now that we have the truth since 1969, all right? That bridged the gap between, you know, us and our forefathers, all right? And understanding who we truly are, right? It says making it a faith of liberation music, all right? And a lot of people monetize it. A lot of you jakes monetize religion, right? And resistance, Black church traditions, Latin American liberation theology, Native syncretism, all right? So reality check. Western Christianity didn't just spread faith, it was tied to conquest, slavery, and white supremacy. Yet the oppressed peoples turned it around using the very text of the Bible to inspire revolts, abolition, civil rights, and cultural survival. All right. So this is Psalms, all right, chapter 50 and 16. It says, but unto the wicked, which are the so-called white man who's trying to paint himself as this upstanding person, but you're not. Okay. Psalms 50 and 16. But unto the wicked, the Most High said, what hast thou to do to declare my statutes, or that thou shouldest take my covenant in thy mouth? Seeing thou hatest instruction, and castest my words behind thee. And that's what you've done. You completely cast the word behind you and put on this face of righteousness, right? But on the inside, you, like the scripture said, like dead men's bones, like open sepulchres. Okay? When thou sawest a thief, all right, then thou consentest with him and has been partaker with adulterers. And that's Esau, man. Okay? You're not on the right side. You on the wicked side, bro. It says, thou givest thy mouth to evil, and thy tongue frameth deceit. And that's all you have done, right? That's all you have done. You've always spoke evil with your bullshit statistics, your pseudoscience, only to keep you up on top, man. With all of that, you still are going to fall. You're going to fail. All right. Thou sittest and speakest against thy brother. Those are the Israelites. Those are so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. Because the so-called white man is a Hebrew. He's just a Hebrew Edomite. Okay. So you were supposed to take on these customs. You were supposed to respect and reverence the Most High, and you didn't. You didn't. So the Lord is going to try your works, man. All right. And speedily and quickly will he destroy you, man. That's Wisdom of Solomon 6. Right? You're supposed to run this earth because the Lord appointed you to run it. All right. But he ain't appointed you to run it any type of way you wanted to, even though it was always meant for you to do so. All right. So it says these things, right? It says, thou slanderest thine own mother's son. And that's what you've done. You slandered us. Okay. To slander, like, for instance, through entertainment, movies, through propaganda and media. All right. You've always, scientific journals and all of this stuff, man. So the word here for slander is lathan. All right. Okay. So it says to give, bestow, grant, permit, ascribe. All right. Employ, devote, consecrate, dedicate. All right. Pay wages, sell, exchange, land. Let's see here. All right. Right. Slanderous. Let's see what this one is. The word here is dapaya. All right. Dapaya. And it says blemish, fault. You see, and you blemished our image. Okay. To the world, to the whole world. even so much, even our own brothers, the Latins, the Native Americans, they all believe we should do a bunch of lazy, ungrateful, hateful, violent people. But you push that stigma on us, and you force fed us your wine through your entertainment, right? Which is all witchcraft, man. But it's all coming out, meaning to push over a stumbling block slanders. Okay, so you've been figured out, man, right? And thanks to the Spirit of the Lord, man, you've been exposed, right? So moving on, Psalm 50 and 8. Let's see here. It's like 50 and 20. Thou sittest and speakest against thy brother. Thou slanderest thine own mother's son. These things hast thou done, and I kept silence. Right. And the scriptures talk about, you know, uh, here, let's just get it. Ecclesiastes 8 and 11. And it reads, it says, because sentence against an evil work is not executed speedily, therefore the heart of the sons of men is fully set in them to do evil. So you were fully stuck in your ways to do evil. You were fully set in your ways because the Lord didn't punish you, or, ain't no dark cloud come over you and punish you for all the evils that you've done and been getting away with for the longest. But you ain't never got away with nothing. Verse 12, though a sinner do evil 100 times, and his days be prolonged, which Esau, your days were prolonged, yet surely I know that it shall be well with them that fear God. It's well with us, because ultimately we know the end, right? Which fear before him, but it shall not be well with the wicked, neither shall he prolong his days, right? And that's what you're trying to do through your new world order. You're trying to prolong your days. You're trying to erase history, and it's not going to happen, B. It's not going to happen, B. Right? It says, which are as a shadow, because he feared not before God. All right. And they don't fear. They don't even seek the Lord. They ain't even trying to see what the Lord says and they ain't seeking counsel of the Lord, which is going to the prophets or going to the scriptures. Man, that's way out of their way. They ain't, man, Esau, he's fully set to do wicked, and he was created to be wicked. Habakkuk 2 and 4, it says, behold, his soul which is lifted up is not upright in him, but the just shall live by his faith. All right, so the just is living by faith, but the soul of the wicked, right? They ain't upright. Okay, they're perverse. They're what's the word? Froward. All right, and completely polar opposite of all things good. Okay, all right. So it says, verse 21, it says, these things hast thou done, and I kept silence. Thou thoughtest that I was altogether such an one as thyself. So you thought that the Lord was commending what you were doing, that the Lord was okay with what you were doing in the earth, but he wasn't. He wasn't, dummy. He was tallying up all the evil that you were doing, ultimately to bring what? But I will reprove thee, meaning what? He's going to correct you, or what? He's going to, let's see here, word for reprove, because that's what's happening, and the Lord is using us to do it. The Hebrew word is yakach or yakach. Yakach. It says reprove, rebuke, correct, plead, reason, chasten, reprover, appoint, arguing, and that's what we do. It says to prove, decide, judge, rebuke, and that's what we're doing. Okay, all right, and we're giving you the judgments out of the book. Okay. And it says, and set them in order before thine eyes. Who is he setting in order? The Israelites. All right. And what? We're the witness against you. Okay. So it says, now consider this, ye that forget God, lest I tear you in pieces, and there be none to deliver. Whoso offereth praise glorifieth me. All right. And to him that ordereth his conversation aright, meaning your conduct, will I shew the salvation of God. And the ones is actually ordering their conversation right and doing the right things and changing their conduct and becoming new creatures are the Israelites. All right. It ain't you devils, man. Okay. And that's who salvation is going to come for, those who what? The elect. Okay. The ones that are changed. All right. And we repented. And even in our repentant state, Esau is still trying to come after us, and he wants to eliminate us. And then this is real malice. This is real evil or evil work that he's trying to do, man. Okay, because the scripture say you shall come down with great wrath, because you know that he had but a short time. You know you ain't got long to rule. It's over with for you, man. Revelation 12:12. Therefore rejoice, ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea, for the devil is come down unto you having great wrath, because he knoweth that he hath but a short time. So you're going to come down with great wrath because what? The Israelites are waking up, okay? And that's a detriment to you. So, Lord willing, this was edifying. Until next time. All right, I'm going to say shalom, Yahweh Shem Al Shah Barakathon.